St. Peter's Square, a gunman fired a volley of shots. The Pope suffered such serious stomach wounds he was given the last rites, but within weeks he was on his feet again. Later, John Paul II would go to the prison and personally forgive the man who tried to kill him, whose suspected ties to the Bulgarian secret police and the Soviet KGB were never proven. In December 1989, Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev came to Rome at the Pope's invitation. This historic meeting ended 70 years of suspended diplomatic ties between Moscow and the Holy See. The Cuban dictator Fidel Castro would also visit the Vatican and pave the way for a papal trip to Cuba in 1998. In the presence of dictators, John Paul spoke out against oppression and injustice. But in the West, he warned against the excesses of materialism.
We cannot stand idly by when thousands of human beings are dying of hunger.
John Paul II made several pilgrimages to the United States. His papacy spanned the terms of 5 U.S. presidents, from Jimmy Carter to George W. Bush. In 1987, thousands of adolescents turned out to see him on his visit to Los Angeles, where he was accorded the kind of reception usually reserved for rock stars. And in New York, he turned Central Park into a giant outdoor mass.
God bless America.
This modern pope skillfully used live television to spread the pictures of his travels around the world. Yet while Pope John Paul II brought the papacy into the modern era, he never wavered from a strict interpretation of church doctrine. He successfully withstood challenges to liberalize church practice on divorce, homosexuality, the ordination of women, the marriage of priests, birth control, and abortion. By the spring of 2002, the Catholic Church in America had become embroiled in scandal and crisis. Charges of the sexual abuse of minors by priests and cover-ups by the church hierarchy led the Pope to summon the American cardinals to the Vatican. John Paul said that abuse was both a crime and a sin. The Pope also made the church more reflective of the changing demographics of its membership, appointing Catholics from Latin America, Africa, and Asia to Vatican posts. In the year 2000, he set out on an important pilgrimage to the Holy Land and left a written apology for the wrongs of Christians against the Jews. But as he grew older, he weakened. He had several operations and suffered from Parkinson's disease. When walking proved too difficult, he was pushed along on a moving platform. With all that he accomplished, John Paul II was happiest in his role of simple priest, as shepherd to his flock, watching over the faithful and bringing them the assurance of his message, "Be not afraid." In the course of his papacy, the world changed dramatically, but not the inner convictions of John Paul II, nor his vision of just what the church stands for. And if you're just joining us, this towering figure is no more. His life ended at 2:37 p.m. According to the Vatican. That is East Coast time, United States time, 9:37 p.m. local time in Rome. A crowd now estimated at 70,000 has jammed into St. Peter's Square. They were told firsthand that the Pope had gone home. And waiting to talk to us off St. Peter's Square in the city of Rome is Father Thomas Williams, a man who viewers have come to know over the past several weeks as the Pope has been ailing and nearing the end of his journey. Father, since you are right now, in effect, one of our reporters on the street in Rome at this hour, what do you see near you? Are people streaming into the square? And how did you yourself learn the news?
Well, actually, pilgrims have been streaming into the square throughout the day. The square has been swelling with pilgrims. There have been people there praying the rosary, some people kneeling down, some people crying, some people singing. And that is just going to continue throughout the night. It's actually very, very beautiful to see this outpouring of affection. Many people came to pay their last respects to Pope John Paul, and many others just to make a show of gratitude. I think that many people felt that they received something very personal from this Pope. Not only a great Pope for the world and for the Church, but for each one of us.
Father, you've lived there for, what, 14 years, and that's a lot of time as this man has gotten old, this man who believes so strongly that suffering is part of the journey, that in death as well as in life, he he offered so many examples to his followers and others, but is there any way to truly prepare yourself for the final and official word that he was gone?
Well, it's very tough. You get a kind of a pit in your stomach. It's, you know that he's going to die. You know that the end is coming. And at the same time, when you finally hear the news, the Pope has died, it's a terrible moment. It's a very sad thing. It's when someone you love very much, someone that you've been close to, someone that has been such an important beacon of hope, and someone who's also been a father. It's a very tough thing. And yet, at the same time, it's a moment of great hope. The Pope's message throughout this past week, even in the midst of his deepening infirmity, has been one of hope. He ended his message the other day on Easter with the words to Christ, "In you we believe, in you we hope, you have the words of everlasting life."
And Father, when does it change? Is there a moment when the sadness, the natural grieving and sadness, turns to what the Church and the late Holy Father would prefer to be a celebration of a life?
Well, I think that the two sentiments are mixed in one's heart from the very beginning. I can just tell you my own experience right now. I'm filled with sadness. On the other hand, I'm very convinced that he's embraced by our Lord in heaven right now, and that he's been being told, as we read in the gospel, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in small things. Welcome to your master's joy." And I'm sure that that message of joy and union with God is his now right at this moment.
Father Williams, I want to thank you very much for taking time out. I know you too probably want to join the 70,000 now mourners who fill St. Peter's Square. We'll be talking to you, Father, along the way. And I've been told that we are linked by telephone now with a man who's been Secretary of State under 2 U.S. administrations and a player in the geopolitical scene for many years. Former Secretary of State Dr. Henry Kissinger. Dr. Kissinger, so much has been said and will be said over the next several days about this Pope. Can you view him, rank him in terms of the giants this earth has seen, say, in the past century?
I think the Pope was one of the greatest men of the century, and it would be very hard to rank anybody above him in that century.
How, I don't mean to interrupt, Dr. Kissinger, how much of a role do you credit him in what became the fall of communism, and where do you place his upbringing in Poland, his firsthand witnessing of the events of the Holocaust as a tempering device in his life?
Well, people give him credit for the fall of communism, and he deserves this. But he was a man who rose above even that issue. I had the honor of having 2 private audiences with him and to see him 2 or 3 times in larger groups. If I understood what he was attempting to do, he was trying to insist that there were some universal truths that were above politics, and that communism was unacceptable precisely because it elevated one dictatorial system or one political system into a claim for universal applicability. And it is in this manner that he was so difficult for communism, impossible to defeat when he returned to Poland. But his vision and what he attempted to do went far beyond dealing with communism. It was to make the church to insist on a concept of universal truths that apply to all of humanity, and that is why he was personally such a moving individual, and why he had such a colossal impact by making his church more relevant in many parts of the world where it hadn't reached before.
Dr. Kissinger, as we watch the Pope going back in his life, these more youthful pictures, his love of young people, his effect on them, do you think he has set the mold now? Do you think it's possible to have a pontiff either follow this man or once removed, that just keeps to the affairs of the church? Do you think the job description has now irreparably and forever been changed to citizen of the world / activist?
Well, it's almost impossible to follow a great man with another great man. My guess would be that the choice will be an interim pope, and that the pope after that will try to follow the mission that John Paul II had.